Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Record-ology. Welcome in, you guys. It is Saturday morning here in the Mile High City. So glad you're here. Again, if you're watching the replay, why weren't you here for the live? Maybe you were busy and that's cool. But maybe you wanted to be here and couldn't be, didn't know about it. Definitely hit that bell notification. Select all. Make sure you got notifications turned on. And see how long until we get our first one here. 22 seconds in and nobody yet. Always fast. Oh, here we go. Yeah, first one in. Welcome in. Always fascinates me. I'm always very grateful and humble that anybody wants to spend their time with me, especially a Saturday morning for folks in the U.S. or Saturday afternoon for our friends a little bit further to the east of us. Welcome in, one and all. Thought we would go live for a while, just do, a chit chat. I don't really have an agenda. Always happy to answer your questions, tell you any insider knowledge that I may have or not have, or give you the inside scoop. I always try, just kind of like what I did on The Nation, for folks that are interesting. Hold on a second. Okay, cool. So for anybody that has Apple Music, do you guys get like the notifications when one of your favorite artists drops a new song? Somehow I'm on the Christian hip hop list of new songs. So Mitch Darrell just dropped a new song. Interesting. So yeah, always interesting. But I don't know what I was saying. I'm just glad you guys are here. So thank you guys for being here. Douglas Ray, thank you for all your very informative videos. Thank you for watching them. I really appreciate it. Now I've been doing this, gosh, 5 years plus. This hair is driving me nuts. I got this one hair that keeps like dangling down. And I never ever in my wildest dreams thought that I would have that much to say. But everybody my whole life been telling me that I talk way too much. So it is no huge surprise, I guess, that I've been able to blab on for 5 years. What's been interesting about it is it's not something that I was an expert in. I don't really think I'm an expert in anything, but I become very enthusiastic about things. I become very passionate about different topics, and I'll dive into them, usually for periods of 6 to 9 months, and then sometimes they'll last longer than that. But the fact that this was able to last 5 years so far has really blown my mind. And also, I've also thought to myself, a record player is a relatively simple device. How do you keep having things to say about it? Part of it too is that it's sort of like a news cycle. There's like a period when a video sort of performs or is seen by people watch it, and then it kind of becomes obscure. And yeah, even though there's 500 plus videos out there right now, there's not 500 videos that are actively being accessed and viewed, and anybody can go watch any of them, from our first one to the last one, or the most recent one, I should say. But YouTube isn't necessarily pushing a 4 or 5 year old video, and people may not know to search. So sometimes I'll be like, hey, could you do a video on, I don't know, Seberg Records? And we've done multiple videos about Seberg Records. Or hey, what's this? And we've done videos about that as well. Or what's this down here? Okay, here's a little interesting tidbit. I've got a little interesting story to tell you guys. Much to my dismay, this week, and again, I listen to vinyl while I'm working, because I do work here as well. And so I'm in this seat a lot. And, I like to have some music playing in the background. And much to my dismay, this week, I noticed that there was this terrible hum coming from what I believe to be the Technics. And again, I've got a very quirky setup. It's done the way that I'm very particular in the way this is set up, and it's not, probably nobody on earth has a setup like this. And that's not to say it's good. That's just to say it's weird. I don't have an amplifier. I don't have a receiver. So all of the stuff go through mechanical switches. There's one mechanical switch in this rack. And then there's another one off camera here to my right. And basically I select the input that I want. One of the inputs on this switch selects that switch, and then any inputs you put on that switch go through. So it sounds kind of convoluted, but it's really not. So I switched to this record player. So I thought, and I'm getting this like 60 cycle hum. And I, like I said, I'd worked in television for a number of years, so I'm used to that. And I don't have a ground lift. I used to love those things in TV. You get a 60 cycle hum, you just put a ground lift in there and it would solve the problem. Well, I don't have that luxury here. So I had to chase it, and chasing a ground loop, if you've been doing this for a while, can be tricky. I've got a lot of stuff, more than any normal person would have in this little space. So it makes sense to be simple and to avoid things you don't need. So if you can get by with an internal preamp, use an internal preamp. If that being said, I have 2 record players. Who needs that? Only need one. But and you may be saying, what is that one? That doesn't look like your RT85 that we usually see down on that corner. Hey, Kyle, welcome in. Welcome into everybody. Hit that thumbs up and give me a shout out in the comments. Anything you guys want to ask or talk about, happy to do so. Random Thoughts says, I really enjoy watching your videos. All of the things you review are pretty cool. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Not everybody shares that opinion. So I appreciate you saying that. That's really, really nice. Anyway, so I'm chasing this hum, and I'm like, what on earth is going on? Long story short, it ends up not being the turntable, it ends up being the preamp. I had a U-turn Pluto preamp, and those are rock solid. They're great. I've had it for years. I use it on and off, and it just wasn't working. Like it was giving me a hum. It took a long time to, on and off throughout a day in between meetings. I was like trying to figure out what the heck was going on. Sure enough, that darn amp wasn't working. I was so bummed. I was like, you got to be kidding me, the preamp. And this thing, being a vintage turntable, needs a preamp. It doesn't have an internal one. And so I grabbed a couple other ones. Anyway, long story short, I blew through 3 preamps that day. I don't know what. So there seems to be something systemic that could be causing that. I don't know if this thing is outputting a higher amount of voltage than it should. So shocker of all shockers, and this is really weird. I know this is weird. Don't tell anybody. But I'm running a Crosley P10 preamp on the Technics turntable. It's working brilliantly. It's working absolutely brilliantly. And so then I was using the P10 on the RT85. Well, so now that also requires an external preamp. So I needed to replace that for the time being with the turntable that had a built-in preamp. So I was in a direct drive kind of mood. I think I posted that this week, and I grabbed the Crosley C200 direct drive, and I've been using that. So anyway, that's something that transpired this week. There's always something going on. It makes it fun. You know what I mean? It makes it fun and interesting. Tell me what you guys have been, up to in the vinyl world. Kyle says, a friend gave me an old Voice of Music record player. Oh, that's so cool. Is that like a crank up phonograph? I need to do more videos with my phonograph. I love that thing. But you know what? I only use it for videos pretty much, and then it's a very, large decoration in the living room. I don't think ever once I've said, you know what I need to do right now? I'm going to go listen to a record on the Vita Nola just to listen without filming it. That's something I noticed early on with the channel is I had this thought that, well, yeah, I'm going to do Record-ology, but I'm also enjoying records personally without any involvement in the show necessarily. Early on, I remember I couldn't, and it was back when I was low on content. I didn't have 1,000 videos. I didn't have, how many is it now? How many do we have? I think it's over 1,000. Anyway, I didn't have all these videos, and I felt like I was wasting time if I was listening to something or doing something and not filming it. So early days of Record-ology, almost all my involvement was documented in videos. And notice I say videos, not shows, because especially early on, they were videos. And I'm kind of taking a step back to that, simplifying things. And again, my TV experience is ingrained in me, this desire to have like a formatted approach to making the videos. So like I have this desire to do an intro, and then to do a cold open, and then throw to an intro, and then do the content, have a story arc within the content, and then have an outro. You know what I mean? Like it's a couple of years ago, we were doing like we had bumpers, we had all kinds of stuff in there. We had what else? Commercials for things that we were doing. It was very much a show. And I like that. I thought it looked slick because I just wanted it to look nice. You spend time doing something, you want it to look nice. But over the course of several years, I have grown to learn that here on YouTube, people don't want a show. They don't want a TV show. They want a video. They want to click on the video and it just starts. It just starts. They don't want to dick around with, all this, crazy intros and flashiness. And that's why I keep my intros very short, less than 10 seconds, and, just on point. So that's what I try to do. And even as of late, I've tried to really just cut to the chase. Cut to the chase. People want to see that. They want to move on with their day. They want to give you 10 to 12 minutes. So I got to minimize my 30, 40-minute videos. Now, some people like long content. They like that, and that's fine. But most people don't. If you look at the average view duration, it's generally 50% of whatever you're putting up there. I'll drink some water there. And it's kind of interesting too, because with my propensity to just blab and to talk, I have this bad habit of the first shot being a shot of the workspace or the granite counter or the workshop table, whatever it is, without even a box, and then just talking without doing anything. And I'll look back if I'm editing and I'll be like, this is like 3 minutes staring at a box while I'm saying, hey, welcome in everybody, here's what we're going to do. And I realize that that's people are either clicking through that or I just lose them and they click off, which would be the worst scenario. It's constantly an adjustment. It's constantly learning and all that stuff. Now, back at one point, I wasn't putting myself on camera at all, and people are like, oh, you should see you at some point. And I still don't know what the best option is for that, because some people say, no, you should be, one of my mentors actually, who's very successful, said you need to be on cameras. Lou Mangello, I don't know if you guys know Lou Mangello, WDW Radio. He's like, you got to be, people want to connect. They want to see a person. They want to connect, at least at some level. I didn't want to sit there and blab just with my face. I wanted to blab facing equipment. And that was kind of where I started out. But they're like, no, need to be on there a little bit. But now I feel like, I don't know, maybe I haven't really put myself in the videos lately. And and it's worked really well for people like Via Westlife. He's never on camera. He's been on camera very minimally. People are fine. He just cuts right to it. Doesn't even say welcome or thank you for joining. It's just like, and here's what we're doing. Tecmo, he does a little bit of an intro, and it just goes cuts right to the chase. So it's constantly trying to figure out what folks are trying to do. Now, I know YouTube content sort of fits into the cracks in our lives. Like you catch a video while you're sitting on the toilet, or you catch a video while you're eating in the car, or maybe you've got downtime, or you're stressful at work and you need to take 10 or whatever, like it fits in, hey, ladies or kids, let's all sit down and watch YouTube. Some people do watch YouTube on the TV. I've done that before. But I think a lot of times people are just grabbing a quick video. So you could overproduce something and just be wasting your time and lose your audience if they get bored sitting through unnecessary stuff like a box that you haven't touched in 10 minutes because you're talking through it. My first product review videos were like 45, 50 minutes when they could have been 10. They could have been 10. I'm always trying to condense, because when I'm filming, a couple things happen. One, I lose like 20% of my vocabulary. I don't know what it is. I just can't think of words. Doesn't happen at work. Like if I'm making a presentation at work, I'm speaking with my team, I sound reasonably intelligent. But for some reason, when I film, I will forget basic words. I'll forget. Ever been in a job interview where either A, you can't think of a basic word, or B, you can't stop saying a word over and over and over? Not fun. Not fun at all. So, but yeah. It's interesting. One of the things I really like about YouTube is it's a puzzle from a creator standpoint. What can you do to make it more successful? What if you do this, what happens? If you do that, if you cut this out or minimize that or add this or whatever, how does it impact the performance? Because there is a ton of metrics to look at, which is always interesting. Zanium Star, welcome in. That's a cool username. Thanks for your video on the AT-LP60X BT. Gave me confidence to upgrade for my red tips. Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah, a few months in. And that's the perfect trajectory you're on. So you get started with the suitcase player, with an all-in-one, and you're like, this is cool. I want to do more. And that's a great next step. And that's, and I always say this, maybe that's as far as it goes. Maybe you don't need anything beyond the LP60X. And sometimes some people don't need anything beyond a suitcase player. That's fine. Let people do what they want. I've decided that in every hobby, any interest, any sport, there is a there's There's an unhealthy amount of gatekeeping, grouchy people that are dissuading new people to hobbies. And I've seen it time and time again. As the kids grew up and got into different sports and things, I saw it. Any hobby that I've sort of obsessively jumped into and wanted to learn everything about, I've seen it time and time again. And that was one of the early goals of this channel, was sort of dismissing a lot of what I believe to be misinformation about the entry level. That being said, I've never said I was an expert, because I just started doing this in 2016. I had a record player and records as a kid, and I swiftly moved off of them. I have not been doing this for 30 years. Most of you guys have been doing this more than I have. But I've documented my experiences as I've learned things. And sometimes I will say something and it turns out not to be the case. I will find out better information, more accurate information, and then I will go on to correct that. So it's just an experience. I'm just documenting the process. This has never been about, oh, let me tell you how. But as I learn stuff, and if I learn a trick or a tip, I want to share that. So yeah, LP60X, great turntable. Made by the same company that made this. Made by the same company that makes the LP60 or the LP120s. The pads there, welcome from Ireland, or hey from Ireland. Welcome in. That's awesome. So glad to have you here. Hello from Greece, says Alex. So happy to see you again, Alex. Same with you. It's always good to see you on these lives. Kyle says, it's electric. It looks like a small box with a record player when you open it. Oh, that's cool. Oh, that's so cool. Shoot me a picture on email. Record-ology1938@gmail.com. I'd love to see that. Alex says, just use my LP3 turntable to hear Ozzy Osbourne Ordinary Man album. The LP3 is a darn good turntable. And as you know, until I got this thing, it was my go-to. It was my favorite turntable. This right now has stolen my heart. I just am so enthralled with that turntable. It's never ceases to amaze me. I will say this. This may surprise you, but this doesn't have quartz lock speed consistency control, but it's got a DC servo. So I think it takes, or is it something to do with, I want to say a DC servo sync system or something. So it has something to do with the electrical, and then uses that to keep and maintain speed. And even that said, if you look at the strobe markings, it kind of oscillates back and forth a tiny bit, kind of like this, which somebody told me that is actually desirable because it keeps the pitches from being flat, and it adds sort of a vibrato or resonance that is so microscopic and nearly inaudible that it won't ever present itself as wow and flutter. It'll just sound like more dynamic music. But it's not rock steady, is what I'm trying to say. It doesn't drift. I mean, once you set the speed, it pretty much stays. This thing, the Crosley C200, and that's a direct drive. Instead of having a little DC motor, which I have one of them laying around here. Yeah, instead of having this guy, this is the motor in an LP3 and a suitcase player and an all-in-one in most turntables. In an LP120, all of those guys have these basic DC motors. This one came out of not a suitcase, but it's one we destroyed. And when I drove over with a car, but I just kept this as an example. Usually you only see the top of this, but you can adjust the 2 speeds. If it's a 3-speed turntable, there's a variable resistor somewhere else. But the direct drives don't use these motors. The direct drives use a larger, this thing is about this big. We did a teardown on the C200 so you could see what that looked like. It was impressive. It was impressive. But what I'm saying is this thing's lock steady. Absolutely steady. Once you set the speed with the strobe, it doesn't waver whatsoever. It is completely rock solid. More solid, more steady than the Technics, which is kind of funny. That's an interesting show idea. Can the Crosley outperform the Technics? That would get some people to click, wouldn't it? But the LP3, what I was saying is a fantastic one. I wish it had, and it has, they don't advertise it very much, but if you dig into specs, you can see it does have the same kind of speed control that this does. That being said, you may need to adjust the speeds on it, which can be done from very inconveniently from the bottom and a little screwdriver. Make sure you use a very, very tiny screwdriver. Otherwise, you'll short out the motor casings. If you use like a tweaker tool size screwdriver and you're adjusting the trim pots in here and the edge of the screwdriver touches the casing right here on the edge, then the speed will go to 100% and it'll be very difficult. It didn't damage anything, but it makes it hard to set the speed. So you need like a jeweler screwdriver or an eyeglass repair kit screwdriver something that's that small, that will allow you to really get in there. But yeah, LP3, I love that thing. Still have mine. It would not surprise me if I pulled that out. I love the fact that you can, upgrade the cartridge. I love the fact that you can, change it out. The head shell is removable, standard 1/2-inch mount head shell. And at the same time, and it's got a counterbalance, of course, but at the same time, you've got complete automatic control. And I love automatic turntables. You may be saying, then why do you have the C200 there? It's fully manual. Sometimes it's nice to spin one up manually too. But an automatic turntable is a wonderful thing. I love that thing. I absolutely love that thing. Have you seen the new Audio-Technica turntable? Can't wait for it to come to the UK. Which one is it? I've seen a couple of them. There's a few things from Audio-Technica I need to get my hands on still. Alex says, previous time I asked you about the different types of bladder covers. You helped me a lot. Okay, cool, Alex. I'm glad. Which one did you end up getting? Now I want to ask you, what can I do to lower the speed of my LP3? Because I think it's a little bit off. How funny. We were just talking about that. So yeah, just look underneath. And that's, I noticed that a little bit on mine too. So when I was talking about the speed regulation technology on there, it keeps it whatever it's set at. So if it's set high, it'll keep it at that consistently. And if it's set low, it'll keep it at that. But what you need to do is look on the bottom of the turntable. Now you may be saying to yourself, how am I going to do that? Because I need to test it real time. You need a strobe disc. Mine's back there. Or you can print out a stroboscopic thing on paper and put it on there. And then you need to have a light shining on that strobe that's on the same power supply as the turntable's powered on. So no sunlight. It'll be very blurry if you do that. But a bright light shining down on top of that. And then while that's spinning, you take your tweaker tool and make that adjustment on the bottom. It's fiddly. It's annoying. It's hard to access the bottom of the turntable while it's level and spinning. So, but yeah, that's, I remember having to do that myself. Hey, you guys definitely hit the thumbs up. If you wouldn't mind, please. Got a couple handfuls of people in here and only 9 thumbs up. So if you would hit that, I'd appreciate it. AT-LP3XBT. Okay, I have to see this. All right, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to literally open a new tab, and I'm going to look this up. What? What? That thing is dope. That looks awesome. I mean, it's pretty much the same thing, except it's got Bluetooth. Now, I say that because I like an LP3. I don't really care about Bluetooth that much because I don't use Bluetooth transmission. Now, newer Bluetooth compression, if you use the aptX codecs, some of those aptX codecs can actually render good audio quality. The regular Bluetooth, lower levels of Bluetooth that compress it, so it's like turns your vinyl, your analog experience into digital streaming music. But if you get the higher end codecs, that's a good thing. We need to review this. I love that they've got the higher end Audio-Technica cartridge on there instead of the AT90. What was it? The 91R. Where's the head shell off my LP3? And the cartridge is this guy right here. I actually wore this stylus out. That's why I stopped. That's how much I used it. I need to get a replacement. That is really cool. I did not know they were developing that anymore. That is cool. Yeah, thanks for the heads up. But yeah, I love an LP3. And the white one I got is really cool. I had the black one originally, and I was like, that was my preference. And I actually blew the preamp out on it. It was my fault. It wasn't their fault. What happened was I had a splitter. I had a Y cable. I had like 2 Y cables coming off the RCA outputs. So it was 2 turntables. And what was happening? So 2 turntables were connected to the same RCA via Y. So I only had 1 switch at that point. So I needed to minimize my inputs. But what happens is turntables oftentimes output a steady voltage, and especially if they have an external preamp, they'll do that. So like this P10 preamp that's hooked up to this thing doesn't have an on and off switch. It is always outputting voltage. So what probably happened is it backed up into the other turntable, and the output doesn't want a signal coming in. And so I probably blew it out that way. And when I got my RMA, my replacement, they didn't have any black ones, and I got a white one. I was like, I was like black electronics because I grew up in the 90s. as a teenager, and that was a design aesthetic. So I wasn't like a silver or an aluminum brushed kind of aesthetic person. I was wood and black, which is, this is very 90s, and I like that. But this is such a good thing. It transcends design aesthetic for me. So even though, and I think it's still cool. I think it even looks cool as it is. I like how thin the plinth is on that. I think that looks really slick. But that's what happened to mine, and I just love that thing. It's a great unit. It's a great unit. A lot of people have bought those, and I think it's a smart idea. At one point, I've felt that it was going away, and it just keeps hanging around. And now they've released another one apparently. So thanks for that. My vintage Voice of Music is a Model 110 record player. Okay, we're gonna look this up. Voice of Music, Model 110. This is kind of fun to see what you guys have. I'm also surprised there's still things I'm not aware of. Okay. Wow. Like a vintage suitcase. Okay, that's cool. There's another one. Is that your? Oh wow! Looking at the inside now, so it looks like it's a rim drive or a idler wheel drive with a hollow platter. Wow, that's cool, dude. That's awesome. Is that your main player, or is that just an extra one you have? Brian's got the LP3 in white as well, and I think they discontinued that. Although now, okay, we're gonna go check out Audio-Technica site. Apparently, they just release stuff. They usually release about twice a year. They usually release right about or right during or right after CES in January, or they do it right before Christmas for obvious reasons. And we haven't reviewed much Audio-Technica lately. I love Audio-Technica. Okay, so we got the BT or I'm reading it backwards. AT LP60X BT and the LP60X. Then we've got the LP3X BT. That is slick, $329. So the price has gone up pretty considerably. I think it was $279 before. They consider this has always been a step-up model. LP120X USB. People always ask me, should I get an LP120X or should I get an LP60X? And that always sort of mystifies me because they're completely different turntables. Like, well, it depends. If from a quality standpoint, they come out of the same factory. All of Audio-Technica's stuff, for the most part, is made by handpin turntables. Same company that makes Crosby C100, C200, and others. So these are all handpin of China, and it's a good manufacturer. They make good products. So from a quality standpoint, an LP120 and LP60 is going to be the same build quality, but it's a different turntable. It's a different how do I say this, approach to your vinyl experience. So do you want completely manual? Do you want to adjust the pitch, the speed, cue up the record when it's done, put the tone on back, or do you just want to hit a button and have it go? That's what it comes down to. And the LP60s, before the situation we just went through over the last couple of years, were like $98 for the base model. $98. And see now on the website, the base model is $149, which is better than it had been. But some of these are like the BT models going for $219. So it's just it's from a price point, $149 for an LP60 is a lot more attractive than a $349. So you pay a lot more for that manual experience, but it's more professional grade in terms of the feature set, but it doesn't give you that automatic feature set. So I've said feature set way too many times. All right, so that's their mid-range, and let's see if there's anything new in the higher range. I feel like they've gotten rid of. Oh yeah. Okay, so I'm not seeing all of them. I was looking at their top. Okay, yeah. So we've got the LPW50, LP W30. Those two are not made by handpin. Those are two exceptions. I don't know who makes those. So usually I can tell by looking at it. Yeah, hard to say. So we got a couple variations of the 120s. The LP140 is sort of the next level for, so you got LPW40 is another part of that lineage, LPW50. I was supposed to review when early 2020, when I met with Audio-Technica at CES, in Vegas, which, by the way, we did some cool shows walking the floor. They're out there if you want to watch those. We did lives from the floor. It was really cool to see what was out there. But this was the next one. This was the greatest thing. It's a $450 turntable. It's manual, belt drive. The PB at the end of the LPW PB model number indicates the piano black finish. And a gorgeous piano black finish is an amazing thing to behold. I've got it on my RT85. Beautiful, but you're constantly wiping away dust and stuff and fingerprints and all that good stuff. But yeah, so nothing else new from what I can tell, at least in the mid-range. Let's go on to the high range. It should be an LP5 and an LP7. That's usually their high range. Oh, they got their DJ. So the DJ series, the DJ ones would be the LP40s. Professional DJ. Okay, where's their high end? Do they not? No, they didn't get rid of those, did they? So we've got beginner. I'm just going to go to show all turntables. Usually it's beginner, step up, and then, audiophile. So it's on the drop down. Audiophile. So this will be LP5 and LP7. Yep. So LP5X. That's a new, they came out with that about a year ago, I think. $449. I have not reviewed this. It looks awesome. It's direct drive. It's 2 speeds. I wish it was 3. It's got a J-shaped tone arm. And the LP7 still sits at the top of the range, $849. When I got mine, it was $800, so I was surprised that it is now only gone up $50. That's not too bad. LP7 is a beast. Anybody that says, "Oh, that's cheap," they've never seen one. It's not. There's not. I mean, it's not plasticky. The plinth is solid. It's very heavy. The platter itself is made from some sort of resin. Some sort of. It's a plastic. It's a synthetic, but it's not like a lightweight plastic. It's super heavy. It's heavier than an iron platter. It is incredibly heavy. So heavy that I thought it was an iron platter when I first was putting it together. I had that for, a number of years. It served me well. I tried modding it to play 16-inch transcription discs because it does have a lot of space between the tone arm gimbal and the spindle, but it wasn't quite enough. It was like a millimeter too short or too narrow. And yeah, that was a beautiful turntable. I miss that. It had a gorgeous smoked cover, like a dust cover, but you had to take it off by hand, which I guess is a thing of higher end turntables. Looks like the LP5's hinges back. That's good stuff. I need to do more Audio-Technica. All right, sorry about that little sidetrack. All right, let's see here. It's just one that you have, Kyle. Okay, cool. That's awesome. My main record player is a 1960 GE Wall record player. Okay, now I got to look that up. You guys are sending me on these wild goose chases. Really interesting. Again, if you wouldn't mind hitting that thumbs up if you haven't done so already, it doesn't cost a thing. Wall record player. Is it one of those like Wildcats that like folds down from the case? You're going to need to send me a picture on that too. That's cool. That's really cool. Getting ready to replace my cartridge. What do you suggest for the LP3? Okay. Wow. I believe it was the LP3. I learned the hard way that the Grado may be a little tall. So I put my Grado Prestige 2 on there. This is my highest end cartridge I have. It's about $260 cartridge. They now have a Grado Prestige 3. It's pretty much the same thing. But it is fantastic, warm sounding cartridge. But it's tall on some turntable. Maybe it was the LP7 now that I think about it. Maybe the LP3 was fine. I've tried this on there. Like I said, the AT91R. I think this is basically a 3600 with a different stylus that makes it elliptical instead of conical. But yeah, that stylus wore out relatively quickly. If you guys have sat through this speech before, not speech. If you've heard me say this before, I apologize. The MP110 is a $80 to $100 cartridge. They're putting now in the RT85s. It's cool. Seems exotic as Nagaoka. It's cool, but It sounded pretty much like a 3600, which is good. It's just, it wasn't like, oh my gosh, They stopped putting in the Ortofon 2M Reds, and they started putting these on. This is an okay cartridge. I'm really impressed with my Sumiko Black Pearl, and that's what's on this guy. So Sumiko Black Pearl, $90, $100, incredible deal. Just a fantastic cartridge. I think it's a single magnet. This is actually not a moving magnet. I think this is Pomeroy. Yeah. So this is a moving Pomeroy, sort of a hybrid between a moving magnetic and a moving coil cartridge. Outputs a voltage that's a little bit lower than a magnetic, but they still say you're supposed to use the magnetic setting on your preamp if you have a choice. You can't go wrong with the 3600. I got a couple of those loaded up. Somehow I've accumulated some extra head shells that I, just keep a cartridge on. Some turntables like it's just so handy to be able to go whoosh, whoosh. Have a little opening right there where I've got my Ortofon DJ cartridge on, and that's a cool one too. You couldn't use that on the LP3 because you're confined with the angled head shell because it's got a straight tone arm, so you can't go with that guy. But any of the others you could. It's kind of whatever you want. My Fitbit's bothering me today. It's probably like, you're sedentary. Get up. Also, speaking of cartridges, I really want to get the stylus for this Empire. This Empire ID50. This is actually what came on my Technics. And there's a colorful orange plastic housing with a stylus that was missing. But look at the size of the barrel on that thing. That's pretty hefty. So I'm excited to give this a listen. Folks say it's a pretty good one. And you can buy new old stock for it, no problem whatsoever. On my direct drive here, I'll show you what I'm running. It's kind of out of reach here, but it's I believe this is the Audio-Technica VM95E. This, to me, is the best budget cartridge. To me, a budget cartridge is like 50 or less. I'm thinking mainstream, kind of mid-range at 100. It's all relative. Some people think they're $1,000 cartridges entry level. But this guy right here, VM95E, I believe is what this is called. A couple things I like about it. I love the rake angle. So you'll notice that the cantilever hangs down low. So there's a lot of clearance between the cartridge and the record. One thing I don't like about the MP110 is that you will think this thing is dragging on your record. It looks like the cantilever would be pretty high above it. But first of all, the cantilever comes out of the middle of that enclosure, so it's already at an angle. And it has a tendency to ride very, very low. Sumiko, a little bit low, but not as bad as the Nagaoka. This one stays nice and high, up high, safely above your records. But it also sounds fantastic. This thing sounds good. And if you're new to this, the highest end cartridge that I have sounds noticeably better than a 3600 if you're side by side, back and forth. If you listen to one day and then the other one the next, you wouldn't notice a difference. But when it comes to like this versus a plain old 3600, it's so minimal. It's so minimal. The fact that this thing is $12 is still mind blowing because and this is like I think 35 to 50. It's so similar. This is a great cartridge. I recommend it. So let me try to put this guy back on. On your LP3, don't forget to rebalance your counterbalance and all that good stuff. Set your anti-skate. Speaking of anti-skate, a lot of people with the LP, when I was thinking about this when I was talking about Audio-Technica a minute ago. A lot of people with the LP120s, there was the original ones, the straight LP120s had an issue with motor rumble, and they had an issue with anti-skate not doing anything, and they fixed both of that. So if you see one with an X, LP120X, any variation of X, that's a newer variant. It fixed all that. No motor rumble, none of that. So that's really good. So, all right, you guys. Well, just a quick one. Wanted to say hi. Let me finish up on comments here. Kyle says, similar to Wildcat, it has a walnut wood. Oh, it's cool. It's pretty and has a radio on it. Oh, that's really cool. My oldest General Electric, $10 off. That's great. That's so cool. I like that. My dad had a GA Wildcat, similar type of deal. My friends, thank you for joining me. Have a wonderful and blessed weekend. Stay safe out there. Take care of each other. And we will talk to you soon. Happy record, honey. See you next time.